So today we are talking to Helen Hardware, who is an RTT therapist. I will let Helen describe what that is. Helen, over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, so thank you for inviting me, Emily. So rapid transformational therapy has been pioneered by the UK's top therapist, Marissa Peer. And it's so much more than hypnotherapy, but it uses hypnotherapy along with NLP techniques, which, if you're not familiar with it, is neuro-linguistic programming, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and also neuropsychology. And it's a way of getting to the root cause of an issue or a symptom that you're experiencing, and it can be used for just about anything, but it's brilliant for fatigue, which is obviously what we're going to talk about today. And it basically enables the patient, the client, to go into a deep hypnosis and access their subconscious mind and really understand what the subconscious mind is doing, because usually it's things that we've learned between the ages of sort of birth to about 7 or 8, or maybe up to about 14, depends on the person. But it enables us to access that subconscious mind and understand what's going on there, because the subconscious mind is usually trying to protect us. And once you can get to the bottom of that, you can then engage with the subconscious mind. You can then help reprogram it and reframe those beliefs so that going forwards, you're more in control of those beliefs that you don't even know you've got. So yeah, that's a little bit about RTT.
Wow, sounds incredibly powerful. So with bearing in mind that we're talking about fatigue this month, obviously that's our focus topic, how can RTT help somebody if they're just absolutely bulldozed by the perimenopausal fatigue that's come on maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, and they're suddenly, having been somebody who was always full of beans, could always get through the to-do list every day, could always then get to the end of the day and still want to go out partying with their friends, and suddenly they're struggling to get through the day without 25 coffees, and really they'd rather be in bed by 8 o'clock than even think about seeing friends, which I think for a lot of people watching this is how life has changed in the last few years.
And me. Yeah, you've just described my last 2 years. So just a bit of background there to give you context about me and how RTT's helped me. So 2 years ago, everything was absolutely fine, and I was living a fantastic life. I had a great job that I really enjoyed, and then I was training and doing Ironman triathlons, and I got up one morning. I changed my job a couple of months beforehand, and if I'm honest, wasn't really enjoying it. I was putting a lot of stress and expectation on myself. But I got up one morning and it was like I'd never been to bed in my life. Tired just doesn't start to describe it. I was completely burnt out and completely fatigued, and it got to the point where I simply couldn't function. I could barely get out of bed in the morning, and if I could only make it as far as the sofa and go back to sleep. And even just walking 1/4 of a mile to the shop, I would have to stop and sit down before I could even go in the shop, before I could then walk home, and then I would need to go back to bed for the rest of the day. And I did a lot of work. I worked with an amazing nutritionist who is part of your hub, and really focused on my diet, and it helped. And I tried other things, and I actually had to give up exercising, full stop. I'd physically pushed my body and my mind to their absolute limit. But also, looking back at the age that I was, I was in my mid to late 30s, I'm now recognizing that was probably the start of my perimenopausal period. So yeah, just completely exhausted, and as you say, just not able to get through the day. Unfortunately, I never hit the coffee because I don't like it, but I recognise that it was not totally good for me, but being caffeine free definitely helped. But even then, I got to a point where I was kind of managing my symptoms. I'd got to a middle ground. I was kind of okay, but I wasn't really myself, and I hadn't got that same energy, that same vibe. And I'd really lost my mojo, lost my spark. And RTT was actually the final piece of the jigsaw for me. It was the difference between being able to function and actually being back to feeling like I was thriving. So it's the difference, I guess, between thriving and surviving. And I'd survived for probably most of the last 12 months. I had a year of really not functioning. a year of surviving. And then through RTT, I really found that I was able to find my energy. So what RTT actually did is the person that I was working with, the therapist, took me back into regression. And we went back through my subconscious mind to find the root, the cause, the purpose of the fatigue. And it was quite surprising, the things that came up, some of which I knew about, some of which I didn't. But through the hypnotherapy, we were able to actually engage with my subconscious mind and ask my subconscious mind what was going on, what was it actually trying to do? And the answer was to slow me down. I was trying to do too much. I'm a type A personality. I've always been go, go, go. I want to do get the most out of every moment. And certainly wasn't very good at being present, which is something I've had to learn. And through also training as a yoga teacher, I've had to learn that. But I still found it difficult. And through RTT, I've identified that not only was it to try and slow me down, but I was trying to do too much. I was getting by on 5 hours a night sleep. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was putting myself through huge stresses at work, most of which were of my own making, because I have learned that it's a choice. And there are times when you can actually push back at work and say, no, that's not for me right now. Find somebody else. I'm at capacity. Or even, actually, you know what, that doesn't play to my skill set. I don't want to do that. And that's something I've never done until recently. So, yeah, I was afraid of letting people down. I was afraid of being perceived as a failure. I'd had a promotion and, could I hold it down? I was working with high-performing people and comparing myself against them. And there was, huge issues around, was I being perceived by my peers as good as them? And my body was taxed to its limits through doing Ironman. I'd knocked my hormones way out of sync. So the RTT has been able to get to the root of those causes, but then you listen to a recording for 28 days afterwards, or 21 days, it depends on the person. But it helps you relearn a habit or learn a new habit. So the idea is it takes so many days to break a habit and so many days to learn a new one. But by listening to a recording each day, ideally just before you go to bed, just stick it on some headphones, listen to it in bed. And frankly, I always fall asleep listening to it because it doesn't matter. When you fall asleep, your subconscious mind is still going. Your subconscious mind never switches off. So yeah, that's what RTT does. But it helps then you can restore and rebalance the body by using cellular command therapy, by healing it and sending mental vibes to where you want yourself to heal and commanding yourself to improve. But also, as I say, finding those root causes and saying, okay, I don't need to be afraid of that anymore. I have slowed down. I have learned to take time out. So let's reframe that and look at how it can support me. And it's really since I've had RTT that I've started to find my mojo again. I'm now able to go back to running. I've had 2 years of being unable to run. Every time I try and run, I end up back in bed for a week or so, even if it's just a mile or so of run walk. But last weekend, I did 3 days of non-stop mountain biking. I'm back to running 5K, which for where I was a few years ago isn't a lot, but actually it's enough. I'm able to do it, and more to the point, I'm able to enjoy it. So yeah, it really has helped me get my mojo.
Amazing. And yeah, you could be describing me. I think you could be describing so many of the women in the hub, that whether it's through training hard for sport things, whether it's being pushed from pillar to post because of children and parents and everything else, within reason, it doesn't matter why you've reached that burnout, but so many of us seem to get to this point, and life stress and everything else puts our hormones off balance, and we just stop functioning, don't we? And I think it's interesting. It's been interesting with all the webinars that there are so many different ways that we can come at this. So what's right for one person isn't for another. And it's wonderful seeing how full of energy you are now from this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you saw me at my worst. So.
I did. And so I think I think for some people, the idea of RTT is a stretch into the woo, for want of a better term. But I think you are absolute testament to the fact that it works. So that's amazing. So my next question is, can you work with people anywhere? Can you work with people over Skype, or do you need to see people face to face?
No, not at all. We can use Zoom, Skype, whatever works. You don't need to be in the same room. It makes no difference whatsoever, because actually, as long as you can hear each other, ideally, as the therapist, it's better to be able to see your client via the screen, because then you can observe physical responses to things, because that can actually help unravel some of the details. No, it's really easy. And I think I completely agree with what you've just said about what's right for one's not right for another. And yes, to some respects, RTT could be seen as woo-woo. I'm all for the woo-woo, as you know. But I think it's not just about one thing necessarily being a one thing fix all. So this is one of the things that I found through learning about RTT is the psychology of the mind. And we have been conditioned and programmed to think that a doctor in a white coat that gives us a pill is the person that's going to make us better. But actually, the person that makes us better, even when they do that, is us. It is all within us. So it is about having a healthy lifestyle. It is about eating well. It is about making sure that if you've got any problems, you are engaging with medication. I'd never suggest to somebody to don't take medication. But actually, our ability to heal ourselves is completely within. So that's all you need is yourself and a bit of support. And that's what RTT is.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for explaining it to us. And when I publicise the video, if I put it into the group, are you happy to answer any questions anybody has on the thread from it?
Awesome. Yeah, of course.
Helen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.